Today is launch our consultation on implementing a clean air zone and a range of other measures to tackle air pollution in the city.
I'd like to thank the officers for producing this report. It's a very detailed, comprehensive report, and it's been done in a very professional manner, so I thank the officers for that. Today I'm seeking approval from the Cabinet for the content and submission of a local plan to the Secretary of State in DEFRA in order to achieve compliance with the EU Ambient Air Quality Directive limit of nitrogen dioxide within the shortest possible time. Southampton City Council was one of the first 5 local authorities in England outside of London required to assess the need for a clean air zone, and been served a ministerial direction requiring a plan to be submitted to the Secretary of State by the 31st of January 2019, demonstrating how compliance with EU Ambient Air Quality Directive limits for nitrogen dioxide can be achieved within the shortest possible time. Currently, there are 60 other local authorities assessing whether they need charging clean air zones here in the UK to achieve compliance to government targets. During last summer, a comprehensive consultation was carried out by Southampton City Council, which witnessed nearly 10,000 respondents, the largest number ever received by the Council. This demonstrates the interest and passion of residents, partners and businesses to this very important strategic issue. The report recommends not to introduce a charging clean air zone as it has been assessed as not currently needed to achieve the government's nitrogen dioxide limits by 2020. The preferred option recommends a package of non-charging measures in 2019 to mitigate risk of exceedance, increase the likelihood that compliance is achieved before 2020, and to promote ongoing improvements in air quality. The non-charging measures proposed are offering opportunities for businesses to assess and trial freight consolidation, just like Neil was just talking about, therefore removing HGV trips in the city. Myself and Neil are visiting this location tomorrow. An accreditation scheme for HGV operators so business can identify those who are the least polluting. Introduction of traffic regulation conditions that will ensure all operating buses meet the highest possible emission standard. Revising taxi licensing conditions to remove the most polluting vehicles, expanding the existing low-emission taxi scheme to support taxi operators delivering these upgrades, offering a try-before-you-buy scheme for taxi operators to experience the benefits of an electric taxi for up to 3 months, an extension to the existing My Journey programme to promote active and sustainable travel and reduce private vehicle use, and port measures including shore power and preferential charging of the port HGV booking scheme. These new measures build on the effective air pollution reduction initiatives carried out since the Clean Air Strategy was implemented in 2016, which will witness a reduction of up to 24% in NOx in some parts of the city by 2020. To give you an example of best practice, the taxi scrappage scheme that Southampton City Council introduced just over 12 months ago has now seen over 22% of the taxi fleet here in the city move to low-emission vehicles, one of the highest in the country. The government sees Southampton City Council as an exemplar for this scheme and signpost other local authorities to us for best practice. The target going forward is to have a third of the fleet low-emission vehicles by 2020. Encouraging electric vehicle use fits into our overall electric vehicle strategy of offering incentives and discounts to motivate drivers to take up further low-emission vehicles. As Southampton City Council was one of the first 5 cities to assess the need for a charging clean air zone, we have been successful in accessing the Clean Bus Technology Fund, which will result in all Southampton buses being retrofitted to Euro 6 standard by 2020. Between 2012 and 2017, this Labour Council invested over 5 million in cycle highway infrastructure that encourages travel modal shift and change, and has resulted in a 32% increase in the number of residents cycling. Further investment has happened, which means that the Western approach, as Neil also just mentioned, provides quick and easy travel from Totton to the city centre in about 20 minutes, sometimes less than it would take with the car. But we can do more, and we will do more, and we will be discussing on the next item the bold, new, ambitious Green City Charter that will go above and beyond government pollution targets. Thank you.
My name's Councillor Cllr Leggett. I am a councillor in Fremantle here in Southampton, and I'm the Cabinet Member for Green City.
So you've been appointed in May and straight into the Dragon's Den, into the big challenge that is Clean Air Southampton. The Clean Air consultation has received an unprecedented response from the public. So 56% of people agreed with the initial council proposition of introducing a clean air zone. Could you explain to us the U-turn, please? Why did you change your mind? Or some people could say, why did you disregard the 56%?
It wasn't a U-turn because our position was that we were instructed by the government to come up with a business proposal that would bring us to EU compliance by 2020, and part of that was to assess whether we needed a chargeable clean air zone to achieve it. Now, we were one of 5 cities, the first round of cities, who were tasked to do this. So, for example, Birmingham, their proposal is that they need a chargeable clean air zone, including private vehicles, whereas Leeds, they're also needing a chargeable clean air zone, whereas Derby and Nottingham, they don't need it to achieve EU limits. So in our assessment, and because we were quite successful in when we introduced the clean air strategy in 2016, because when we were tasked by the government, we didn't just wait, we commenced some activities already. So we introduced in 2016 a clean air strategy which had a whole load of initiatives to reduce pollution. So that has actually been quite effective. So we've seen pollution, or we will see pollution reduced by 24% in some parts of the city by 2020. That's a phenomenal success. So what we want to do going forward, because we will meet the limits before by 2020 without a chargeable clean air zone.
Now, if we made in Southampton such good progress since 2016, why did the council support the idea or come up with the idea of a £100 charging zone?
Well, this was all part of the government's framework. So the government, you have to go back to 2011. Originally, the government were tasked with coming out with an air quality plan in 2011 because we were breaking EU limits then. They came up with a plan. In 2015, they got taken to court by Client Earth, and they lost a court case because the court said that the plan that the government came up with wasn't going to do the job. So they came up with a second plan, and in the second plan, Southampton, along with the other 4 cities, was instructed to introduce a chargeable clean air zone to reduce nitrogen dioxide levels. Again, they got taken to court and they lost, and the government then changed their position. So what we were tasked with was we were given a strict framework from DEFRA, which basically told us exactly how we were meant to proceed in assessing whether we needed a chargeable clean air zone. Now, if the government had not been defeated in 2015, then we would be in a very different position. But because they got defeated 3 times, 2015 twice and 2017, there's been such a delay. In fact, it's been an 8-year delay by the government who haven't got their act together. But that doesn't mean that we didn't do anything. So that's why we introduced our chargeable clean air strategy, or our clean air strategy going forward in 2016. So we've effectively implemented a program already, which has brought us into a good position now.
So just to make sure that I understand correctly, the idea of £100 charge came from DEFRA rather than the council?
Well, we use the up to £100 because that's what was used in the London model. So we tried to base it on the London model. And the issue about a chargeable clean air zone was during the summer we were assessed, will we need it? So during this period last year, and you've mentioned the unprecedented number of people that came back, but we also had a lot of information and remodelling and new data coming to us. So once we put that all into the technical assessments, then we could come up with a business proposal which we didn't need a chargeable clean air zone going forward. Because we were engaged in a consultation, many partners within the city, and also things like Highways England, lots of data remodelling, lots of people looking at these things in a much more closer way to get more accurate, because we're talking about forecasts and projections going forward. So, you know, we're talking about what will traffic flows be in 2021, 2022. Now, of course, there is an element in that of there's a margin of error. So there was a lot more understanding about what was going to happen in the future. And for example, the port re-looked at all their data, whether it's the ships coming in or whether it's HGV traffic coming in, because that's a big part of the position. So with all that information, we can put it back in the model, and then we can come up with our projections going forward.
On the 21st of September last year, the Daily Echo quoted you as saying that there was no evidence that the charging zone would impact negatively on the economy of Southampton. 56% of the people who responded still believe that the way to achieve that, to achieve the healthy clean air that we need, is by introducing a charge. So obviously one of your proposals is to work with taxi companies to incentivize them to change. Do you happen to know the ratio of taxis to privately owned cars in Southampton?
I don't know. I know how many. For example, the taxi example is a good case study. So we have roughly about over 300 low emission vehicles now in the taxi fleet. So we're talking nearly over a quarter of the whole taxi fleet. So taxi fleet's just over 1,000. So this is one of the highest in the country. So we introduced a taxi scrappage scheme just over a year ago, which basically gave financial incentives to move to hybrid vehicles, plug-in hybrid or electric. So we've seen quite a transformation. Plus, on top of that, during the consultation last summer, so you talked about September, so from June to September, that period, there was a 26% increase in the number of taxis converting to low emission vehicles. We saw a big spike. And also we saw a lot of behaviour change within the city because of the consultation. So we saw businesses reacting in a very positive way.
That's great. My question is about the residents, because we know that there's a very, very high number of short journeys made into the city. And at the moment it's up to everyone's individual conscience to try and get an electric vehicle.
Or a hybrid. Yeah. Or people could go to a Euro 6 diesel engine. Just to give you an idea, a diesel Euro 5 compared to a diesel Euro 6. A Euro 6 has over 50% less nitrogen dioxide, so it's a massive jump forward. And this is one of the reasons why, because we were one of the first cities to be looked at by the government, we got access to the Clean Bus Technology Fund, and we got a grant for £2.7 million to convert all the buses here in Southampton to Euro 6, to the highest possible standard. So by the end of this year, all of our bus fleet, 100% of our bus fleet, will be Euro 6.
One of the issues during the consultation was an issue about monitoring, because we've got 5 monitors in the city.
We've had monitoring in the city for quite a few years actually, but because of the government's instruction 2015 that we needed to understand what was going on, and we need to implement, and whether we needed a chargeable cleaner. And like I say, if you go back 4 years, no one talked about nitrogen dioxide. So it's an important question, because from now until when we get into 2020, we will be monitoring where nitrogen dioxide is going. Now we know what the trend is, so 2016 to the end of this year, we know in certain parts of the city we will have a 24% reduction. So we know it's going in the right direction, but we will continue to monitor it.
People's argument is that there are not enough monitors in the city to have a reliable picture.
Yeah, I mean, I would counter that. A lot of our methodology has been proof tested with the government, and the government have got the Department of Transport and the Department of Environment, and they've got a joint group called JACU, which is the Joint Air Quality Unit. So our methodology and our system has been approved by them, and they use the same methodology for the other cities as well. So the proposal that's gone to the government, which went at the end of January, is for £6 million worth of measures. So that's including shore power, which is for the first time we will have commercial shore power within the UK. And the port are very fully behind that. In fact, they have offered to fund that by 50%. They're asking the government to fund the other half. The rest of it is other non-charging measures. Extra incentives for the taxi scheme, for example. There's going to be a try before you buy electric vehicle scheme. We'll put some electric charging points on taxi ranks. That's to encourage them to try it. In fact, I had a meeting with the taxi trade earlier today about this. The other thing is we are trying to incentivise people, because not everyone can afford to go straight to an electric or a hybrid, but maybe they can go to a Euro 6 from a Euro 5. So we're incentivising people to go to the larger wheelchair accessible vehicles, because we've got a lower number in the city that we need, and they could be second-hand vehicles, so we've got extra measures. So we're hoping to hear from the government within the next few weeks.
Green City Charter,
Yes.
you've invited people to contribute. Yeah. So a lot of people who have a significant active interest in this would feel cheated because they haven't been taken into consideration before. Could you tell us, please, why should people still get involved in the Green City Charter?
I would still like people to get involved, and the reason why I'd like them to get involved is because I think when we had the consultation last year for the chargeable clean air zone, we had nearly 10,000 people make a contribution, and this is the biggest consultation that we've ever had, and we had so many interesting ideas and suggestions, and people really engage with pollution. They understand that it's an issue. I mean, everyone is responsible for their own carbon footprint, so we're also responsible, everyone's responsible for doing something about it. And I think that's an important message. So the Green City Charter is an opportunity going forward, because the whole concept of the chargeable clean air zone was all about reaching a nitrogen dioxide limit by 2020. That was the government's instruction. So we don't want to stop there. So we want to widen it out. So not only will we have a bold and ambitious target going forward, which goes above and beyond what the government say, we want to include other pollutants as well, like the particulates. And I'm really pleased that 3 weeks ago, the government launched their clean air strategy with Michael Gove and Matt Hancock. And they've decided that they're going to introduce particulates as a target within their strategy, which is exactly what we're going to do. But it's not just about pollution. I mean, we're talking about